Good evening. My name is Landis Baxter, and I am here to present and enlighten you about the topic of concussions and their long-term effects. About 4 weeks ago, I was watching a football game on TV between the Dolphins and the Bengals. The quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, seen scrambling out of the pocket and is slammed to the ground, hitting the turf violently. His hands immediately enter this perplexed shape in front of his eyes. And I wondered to myself, what's wrong with him? Is he okay? This injury prompted me to discover more about this injury that he suffered. Football is a dangerous sport, and it comes with a plethora of dangers. The most dangerous being concussions and traumatic brain injury. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about three main points. The first, although there have been several precautions put into place, there is no real way to stop concussions in football. Even with the most advanced safety gear and protocols being used, there is no way to assure that these protocols will be followed correctly. And finally, there are both life-threatening and fatal diseases that are now showing up in both past and present NFL football players due to these injuries. My first point, although there have been several precautions put into place, there is no real way to stop concussions in football. The most important precaution that can be taken while playing football is wearing the correct safety gear, specifically the helmet. Here you see a replica of an NFL helmet. I'm going to show you an analogy now of two eggs. So think of holding an egg in each of your hands raw. You set them like they're playing football against each other, and you violently smash them together. The eggs crack, and the yolk goes everywhere. Now I want you to think about these eggs as NFL players. Men exceeding 300 pounds, crashing and launching their helmets at each other violently. How can that be safe? It can't be. My second point, even with the most advanced safety gear and protocols being used, there is no way to assure that these protocols will be followed correctly. Ask any player, past or present, that stepped onto the gridiron. The main and one thing they will say is that their common goal was to win, no matter the consequences. Here I have a video of a time when winning was prioritized over safety. That's when it all goes downhill. Here you see Marquise Goodwin being hit with helmet-to-helmet contact, otherwise known as targeting. When you look at this, you say, football is not just a game at this point. It's life. This can't be safe. Another thing I would like to point out is that you cannot trust that the players will always follow the rules that have been put into place, whether it be on accident or on purpose. Not to say that every time somebody's hit with helmet-to-helmet contact, it's with a violent mindset, but it happens, and it's not okay. It's illegal. Now that I have pointed out both precautions, rules put in place, and that players do not always follow these rules, when these mix, you get our third point. There are both life-threatening and fatal diseases that are now showing up in both past and present football players due to their injuries. CTE, otherwise known as critical traumatic encephalopathy, is caused by an exceeded amount of concussions over time or in a short span of time. The magic number per se is expected or calculated to be 17 concussions, to where your brain starts to look like this. Not healthy. Back to this picture from our first video. This is called fencing response. It's a It's one of the first signs of when you look at a concussion to start to diagnose somebody's symptoms. If they have suffered something in the perplexed view of fencing response, that means that their body had an immediate reaction to traumatic brain injury. This video was 4 days prior to the first video I showed you. Same guy, Tua Tagovailoa, thrown to the ground. Except this time, he was able to pop right back up. When he started to walk, he took a stumble. This is another sign of traumatic brain injury at an early age and a concussion. He should have never been allowed to step onto the football field and face 2 concussions within the span of 4 days. To conclude, I'm going to restate my 3 points. My first, although there have been several precautions put into place, there is no real way to stop concussions in football. Even with the most advanced safety gear and protocols being used and given to players, there is no way to assure that these protocols will be followed correctly. When you mix these 2 points, you get our final point. There are both life-threatening and fatal diseases that are now showing up in past and present football players due to their injuries suffered during their careers. I want to leave you with a quote from Dave Duerson. Dave Duerson was a football player in the early 90s, and he was diagnosed with CTE after his death. This is a quote from his suicide note that he wrote before he committed suicide. He said, "Please see that my brain is given to the NFL's brain bank." He later went on to say, "I want people to know what is wrong with me." That's just something that I would like to leave you with and think about. Thank you. Now I'm going to open the floor up for any questions. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, is all the padding that the players wear, does that not help to prevent the force that could cause a concussion?
Well, when the sport of football was created, the goal was that this padding would neutralize and protect the players from all the force of the clapping of their bodies. But the problem is the illegal move of head-to-head contact completely passes by pads. Pads become inconsequential when you see targeting on the field. So, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for watching.